On Wednesday, when you were asked about ahead of the meeting, Speaker Johnson's HR tour bus position, you had said Speaker Johnson's not the only congressman in the room. He's held to this hardline position, but was there any indication from House members who were present in the meeting or in other conversations that have been had with House members that there is a possibility of them taking on a Senate-passed agreement? Like if an agreement were to be reached and passed in the Senate, has he gotten any kind of assurances that the House would take that on?
So I will say, I think there was broad agreement in the room in that meeting that they needed to deal with Ukraine and also the border. So there was a broad agreement there. I'm not going to get into specifics on how that would look like, but I think that's important. If both Republicans and Democrats in that meeting are saying, yes, we need to deal with this, we need to figure out how to make sure we support Ukraine, we need to figure out how to make sure we deal with the border security, I think that's important. And so that is what we were able to get out of that meeting as well, that type of understanding of addressing those two things.
But is he optimistic that even if the Senate is able to come to an agreement, that it would be taken on and passed in the House?
I mean, look, I'll say this, I'll add to this. It was a balanced and constructive conversation. That's what we saw, that's what happened. And there was, again, broad agreement to certainly deal with making sure Ukraine gets the funding that they need, making sure that we deal with border security. So that is the two important things that came out of that meeting. We are going to continue to have the conversation in the Senate, do the negotiations in the Senate on the border security to get something done, something that the American people want to see, and then we'll see what happens. I don't want to get into hypotheticals. I don't want to guess what's going to happen. Obviously, Speaker Johnson's been very vocal, and he can speak for himself, but it is important. It is important that we see a bipartisan agreement, bipartisan conversation happening, and we'll see where it goes. But the President's going to continue to encourage, obviously, Congress to move forward. Go ahead, Jim. I hadn't called on you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, regarding the House, and a version of this question was asked, I think, during the Air Force One gaggle yesterday, but with Speaker Johnson saying he's communicating regularly with former President Trump on border negotiations, does the White House believe that Speaker Johnson is, in fact, negotiating in good faith toward an agreement on the border?
Look, I'm going to let Speaker Johnson speak for himself. What I can say is that right now we are in active negotiations with members in the Senate, and it is in good faith with Republicans and Democrats. It is happening in good faith, and we are encouraged by where the conversation is going. We believe there has been progress, and so let's start there. Let's start there and let them do their job and continue or do their negotiations and continue to have those conversations. And I'm just going to let the House speak for themselves.
Do you think Speaker Johnson actually wants a border agreement?
That's for him to speak to. I'm not going to speak for him from here. I know I keep getting. Did I call you, Rija?
Quick follow on the border talks, very quick.
Okay.
Is the president open to signing a border deal before one is reached on Ukraine, or does it have to be concurrent?
I can't speak to the timeline of all of this. What I can speak to is we are having those conversations in the Senate, negotiations, as I've mentioned multiple times already from here. I'm sure you're tired of me saying that over and over again. And what I can also say is that we want to see the full national security supplemental move forward. That is what we want to see. We want to see it move forward, and that includes Ukraine, obviously includes Israel, obviously includes border security. That's what the president wants to see, and that is the direction that we hope that it goes in. All right. I haven't called on you, go ahead.
So is the White House supportive of the bipartisan tax bill that was introduced this week that expands the child tax credit but also has a lot of cuts for businesses?
So we think that we are encouraged by what we're seeing, obviously, with the tax deal that is going forward. And so we think that's important. Obviously, the president passed the American Rescue Plan. As you know, very early on, it had the child tax credit. The president has been very clear that he wanted to see that move forward in full, and it's continuing that more permanently. And so that is important. But we are pleased that the House Ways and Means Committee advanced a bipartisan tax bill that will increase that, right? That will increase it. And so, and let's not forget, this is for millions of families, families. It's going to lift hundreds of thousands of children out of poverty and support construction of hundreds of thousands of affordable rental housing as well in that bipartisan agreement. So it is a welcome step forward, and we believe Congress should pass it. All right, guys, we'll